live. Hey, it's November.
Hey.
Welcome to our November hangout for Photo Focus, and we're going to be talking about something that probably thing I get asked about the most on the help desk.
I think your other windows, your chat window's still open.
Hey, I'm hearing myself come through. That was like a Matrix moment there. Sorry about that. So we're going to be talking about using multiple catalogs and Lightroom together, and multiple computers and Lightroom together, and how to make that work. There's a bunch of different scenarios we're going to talk through. Want to remind folks now that you can rewatch this, because some of this might get a little confusing, because whenever you're talking about Lightroom and multiple computers, there's a lot of different scenarios, a lot of pros and cons that we're going to talk about. So don't panic. And ask questions. So have the questions ready, and we'll be taking those. So joining me, as always, for these Lightroom Hangouts, is my good buddy, Levi Sim.
Hello.
Levi, how are you?
Good.
You're back home.
I'm home. We were recently in New York. We were recently at the Photo Plus Expo in New York, and I got to hang out with Rob in real life, and I also got to hang out with our other guest in real life for a little time there.
Yeah.
But yes, currently home. So enjoying the last of fall here, last of the leaves anyway.
Yeah, same here in New Hampshire. And so our special guest, Mark Fuccio, got to see you in New York as well. It was really great to see you in person, Mark. Thanks for joining us this month, talk about this. And I think you are a really ideal guest for this topic, because what it all boils down to when you're using Lightroom on multiple computers is really protecting your data and making sure that you minimize your own self-inflicted injuries, as well as be prepared for any catastrophes that might happen that aren't your fault. So
Right.
Thank you for coming on. And so where are you kind of tuning in from today?
So I'm in the central coast of California. So
Okay.
I'm back home. I enjoyed seeing both of you at Photo Plus Expo a couple of weeks ago. That was a lot of fun. Met a lot of people there, had a lot of good questions. So I think some of it will inform some of the discussions and things we talk about today. And here I'll be talking about Drobo and in particular instances, but a lot of this can apply to other storage devices or even just single drives as well. The key thing is that ultimately everyone should back up to make sure all their valuable images are safe.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so speaking of Drobo, who's been one of our sponsors for a long time, thank you for that, and we really appreciate your support. So Drobo is supporting this one as well, and so we thank them. And our other sponsor, Perfectly Clear, we got to do some stuff with them at Photo Plus as well, and that was really great. Watched Levi demo that software over and over again, helping out the booth.
I'm like a broken record, man. When we get going, it's good.
Well, it was really good. It was really. I think it was a nice, combination of, software, hardware stuff there. So it was really great to see that. And so Perfectly Clear is giving away some of their products at the end of our hour here. So thank you to Perfectly Clear for supporting us and helping to get those great tools out to folks. So,
and Rob, you've also got one more gift you want to give away today as well.
So I'm going to give away an ebook version of this book, my latest Lightroom book that's out. And ebook is just the easiest one, so I can just email the lucky winner a nice little code. So you can download that and read it at your leisure. And some of the stuff we'll talk about is actually in that book, so that'll be a good resource, hopefully.
And how does one enter the drawing for these marvelous prizes?
Yeah. So what we do is we have there's a little chat window. So if you're watching this like through the embedded YouTube link on the Photo Focus website, you want to click on over to the YouTube page to see the live stream. And on that live stream, there's a little Q&A, window, and you can just type your questions in there. And we read through all those names, and we capture that, and we pick our winner from some lucky person who sent in a nice question, or maybe had a nice comment, or maybe not a nice comment.
Or maybe had some nice roast pork egg fouillon while watching the show. So,
yeah. So
thanks, Tom Bunny Hunter.
We want to hear from you, and that's how you get entered to win. And at the very end, we will pull some names. And you got to be here watching, because at the end, when we call your name, we got to hear you say, "Hey, I'm here," and do your game show rundown, and then we'll give you your prize. So So stick with us for that, and we really love answering those questions. So definitely want to hear from them. So,
Right.
We ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's rock and roll.
So what we want to kind of start this out by kind of laying the foundation here for using Lightroom. And no matter how you use Lightroom, this is like something everyone has to know, which is, where is my catalog? Where are my photos? And where am I backing it all up to? All right. Because if you can do all that with just one catalog, then you're ready to kind of move on to using multiple computers. If you can't do that basic stuff, then you got to slow down before you start using multiple computers in
walk first.
Exactly.
Walk first.
Yeah. Right. And so let me share my screen and let me just kind of show you what I'm talking about here.
Yes, please.
All right. Is that sharing?
That is sharing.
Later? All right. So
I don't know how to tell you this, Rob, but Levon was wearing your shirt the other day.
Well, good.
She was wearing that Peach Pit shirt just the other day.
Yeah, let's just leave it like that. I love Levon.
It was good to see her in New York.
It was really good. Totally. I don't want to go off track here. It was a great Levon story. But all right, so here in my Lightroom catalog, if I want to know where this catalog lives, if this is anybody who's using Lightroom, you don't know where your catalog is, right? So all you have to do is, if you're on a Mac, go to the Lightroom and catalog settings. If I was on Windows, I'd find this under the edit menu. And when I open up the catalog settings, I go to general, and right there is the path to where my catalog lives. And there's the name of my catalog file, and it has an LRCAT file extension, right? Tells me some more things about it, when it was last backed up and optimized, and the size of it, all that kind of stuff. If I click this show button, hey, opens up that folder in Finder, or if I was on Windows, it would open in Windows Explorer, and it would show me, there's my catalog file right there. And now I know exactly where it is, all right? And that's really important. Make sure you know. And here's why. So if you back up your catalog, so Lightroom has this built-in backup function, and you can set it to run. I have it set to every time Lightroom exits. I don't do it every single time Lightroom exits, but I have it set to remind me, to prompt me. One might say nag me to do this. And the reason is because sometimes you're in a hurry, right? And you just got to close Lightroom and you got to go off and do something else. So you can just hit the skip button and not back up. But when you do need to back up, maybe you've just done a lot of work and you just want to make sure that's backed up. I know that by having this set, if I just exit Lightroom, it's going to trigger the backup to run. And then you need to know where's your backup going to go? Where's it going to be, right? And by default, Lightroom is set to just store your catalog, your backup, right in the same folder with your working catalog. That's not ideal, right? It's not the end of the world if you're regularly backing up your entire hard drive to some other drive, and that's included, then maybe that's okay. But a better option is to direct that backup to another drive altogether, so you have immediate peace of mind that your catalog is on two drives, right? Because then if one goes down, you've got it safely in another place.
Question, Rob. So when it does a backup, does it store it in the same native format, or does it encrypt it like a zip file and compress it at the same time? Yeah, well, so what it does is it makes a copy of the catalog as it's in its current state. So if I exit it right now, whatever I've got in there, and then once it creates the copy of this catalog file, this LRCAT file, if it's small enough, there's some cases where if your catalog's really big, like Levi's has a huge catalog, it doesn't, and I think it's mostly true on Mac, I'm not entirely 100% sure of that, it doesn't always compress it into a zip file, but for the rest of us, most of us normal people that have catalogs less than 4 gigabytes in size, Lightroom 6 and Lightroom CC, is when it started doing this. It will compress it into a zip file. It's not like password protected or anything magical like that. It just compresses it down to save some space, but also so that people don't accidentally open that catalog file by just messing around and cause some problems to themselves that way. So, for example, if I just close this and I just decide to exit, so here's my prompt saying, hey, back up your catalog. Yes,
right?
let's time out. Let's watch it. Let's see how long it takes.
Oh, really? You want to do that? Okay.
Sure.
So before I do, so this is the only place where you can choose where this catalog gets backed up. So I'm on my laptop right now, and it's not always connected to another drive. So I had directed my backups to go to a Dropbox folder. That way, this zipped file, once it's compressed down, it's about maybe 500 megabytes in size, will get synchronized up into the magical Dropbox cloud and then actually downloaded and synced onto my other computer. So now I know reasonably quickly I've got my catalog on a couple different places.
That's a great idea.
All right, and so if I had an external hard drive connected, that might be a better option, but this works too.
And doing that, Rob, it's saved on your computer in that folder.
That's right.
And then it's uploaded automatically to your Dropbox in the cloud.
Exactly.
And then it's downloaded automatically to your other computer with the same Dropbox folder.
Bingo.
That sounds pretty safe.
Yeah. So the problem.
That's pretty ideal, right?
Yeah.
Mark?
If I shut down and closed out before it had time to upload to the magical cloud, and then I lost my laptop, that would be bad, right?
And you'd have an exposure, right? Exactly. So I'm curious. So if you're on a notebook, if it has SSD, is this a long, lengthy process, or is this just something that people should get into doing a habit and taking the 10, 20, 30 seconds it takes to do it, and just make it a habit and make it sure that they're always safe?
Yeah, well, here, I'll click the backup button and we'll let it go. So I wouldn't say it takes, a few seconds. The larger your catalog, the longer it will take. And I left the boxes checked for doing two things. One is it does an integrity check, which I think is important because you want to know if there's a problem before it becomes a big problem. And then the other thing it does is it optimizes the working catalog. And that is just a little bit of housekeeping to clear out some of the wasted space in that database file. So those two things will add on time to this process, but I think it's time well spent in the long run.
And you were at 35 seconds already, and if that blue indicator is a progress bar, this is going to take a while.
That's why
it moves along.
Why it does eventually, but yeah, that's why I hesitated to do it. But it's really important that you do it, and that's why I don't do it every single time. I probably end up doing it maybe 2 times a week.
Right, like at the end of the day, if I'm leaving the computer, that's a good time to do it. If I'm leaving to go buy lunch, that's a good time to do it. Yeah,
I often will do it kind of either at the end of the day or end of a big work session when I know I've got the time to do it. Worst case scenario, if I were to lose a catalog, I'd have to go back to the most recent one, which was only a week ago, and maybe maybe I would have lost some hours of work, but I wouldn't have lost every single thing that I ever did, right? So how about we? I'll keep an eye on that, but I won't just sit here watching that.
Now, Rob, another
will
safety
never
net
boil.
for that. Another safety net we can use in backing up is to save to write changes to XMP.
Yes.
And that also helps us to protect our files. It's not backing up anything, but it's writing all the changes that we made to our pictures in Lightroom, and it's saving those changes onto our hard drive instead of just keeping them in Lightroom.
Yeah,
that's a terrible description.
On that same catalog settings dialog that I was showing you where the backup was, on the metadata tab of that same little dialog is an option that's not checked by default, but if you wanted to kind of wear belt and suspenders at the same time, and some people like that, you could check that box. And what that tells Lightroom to do is every time you make a change inside of Lightroom, it will first store it in the catalog. Okay, that always happens. It always stores in the catalog. But it can also write that information to the photo's own metadata space, okay? And so if it's a DNG file that you worked on, then it would get written right into the DNG file. If it's a JPEG, get written into the JPEG. If it's a proprietary RAW file like an NEF or a CR2 or something like that, that's when the sidecar file gets created because Lightroom can't write directly into a proprietary RAW file format. And so,
but with JPEG, it writes into the JPEG? I thought it created a sidecar as well.
No, only the sidecar is only for the proprietary RAW file.
Oh, good to know.
Okay, so to clarify, unless it's if it's a file type that's open, it will inject that as additional metadata, as sort of like maybe in the EXIF type of data, so that you'll track it. So that worst case, if you needed to, you could open that image again, and then it would all get imported and parsed and become part of the Lightroom catalog.
Exactly. So my backup just finished while you were talking.
Oh, okay.
So if the clock was running, that was several minutes, right? 5 minutes?
It's about not quite. It's about 3.5.
3.5 minutes. Okay. So that's not, come on, that's not too bad. That's 3 minutes of your life to make sure all hours of your work is saved. That's a fair trade-off.
That's not bad. Yeah. Well, and we've got some questions about it too. So Matt Malloy asks, are the backups incremental in the backup folder, or can we delete the older files?
Well, let me just answer it this way. They're not incremental, and yes, you can delete the old ones. All right.
Yes. Great.
So every time you run the backup, it makes a copy, a 100% copy of the catalog at that moment in time. And Lightroom will continue to fill up that folder wherever you point that folder, and until that drive is filled. So you do want to go back and periodically delete the older ones. Now, I usually will, every month or so, we'll go into that folder, and I'll delete, the last. I try to keep like 3 or 4. I never had to use them, but I just feel like, okay, I've got them. I'll get rid of old ones and keep 3 or 4 recent ones. And where I've seen that,
what if your latest one was corrupt?
Right. Well, what I've seen, where I've seen that most useful is where something happened, where you were backing up and it didn't get corrupted, but you did something not smart. Like maybe you deleted a collection that you just spent hours building a book, for uploading to Blurb. And you did all this time building this book in this special book collection, and then you accidentally deleted the collection and you lost the book. But you had backed up your catalog, 2 weeks ago when that book was done, and all that information is stored in that catalog from 2 weeks ago. So you could open up that catalog and export out just that collection of that book and import that back into your working catalog and get back your information that way. So it's kind of like saving it, in a way, it's like saving iterative versions of your catalog over time. But the longer the duration of time between a backup and now, the less likely you're going to go back and use it, right? Like if my catalog died, I wouldn't go back to January's catalog. I would go back to the most recent one, in November or October, right? So you do want to periodically clear out the old ones, but every backup is its own standalone catalog that you literally could just open it up and it would look just like your regular catalog, with the caveat that your previews aren't included in the backup. So when you first open up a backup catalog, if you just opened it wherever it lived, don't do that. That causes other problems. I'll get back to it. But the preview cache isn't stored with the catalog, so you first will see just gray squares for thumbnails, and then Lightroom starts re-rendering out all of those previews, assuming it can reach the photos, and it will rebuild the preview cache. So the preview cache is not included in the backup. It's just the catalog file itself, just the database.
In speaking of the preview cache, should this be backed up as religiously as the LR cat file?
No.
I'd say no too.
Yeah.
No, in fact, I often delete it because like mine right now is 90 gigs, and I don't need all of those. I don't need all of those.
Well, how big is your camera? How many photos are managed by your camera?
I've got 500,000 pictures in my catalog, and lately I've been going through a lot of things of old folders, and so for all of those, it's creating previews every time I open an old folder, and I'm not going to look at those folders again for another 6 months or so. So I don't need to have all of those fresh previews of old pictures.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, if I were to interject here, just check, make sure my understanding of that is correct. Is that the catalog is your master data. The previews are derived. They're derived from the master image file, so that you have a quick thumbnail. So if it's not there, you can regenerate it again, which is why you could throw it away if you're short on space, on your notebook, or you need space because you're going to jump on a plane and going to do a job or something. Whereas the master catalog, the LR cat file, that's it. That's the thing. Without that, your life is dependent on that. And that's the thing you need to protect most, because derived data, you can rederive it if you need it.
Right.
You're absolutely correct. And so. Just to go to Levi's statement about, so if you check that box to write to XMP metadata, Lightroom will write all of that, all the work you're doing inside of Lightroom gets written to the XMP file, except there's 4 pieces of data that can't get written to XMP. And you have to kind of be aware of that and decide if that's really important to you or not. So one of those things that cannot be written to XMP is regular collection membership. So if you have all kinds of regular collections that you're physically dragging, dropping photos to those collections, that information is only stored in the catalog file.
Right.
All those individual history steps in the history panel in the develop module, that only exists inside the catalog file. That does not get written to XMP. Only the last, greatest and latest settings, that, exposure plus and, all that, whatever that state is, that's saved to XMP, but not every other step you took to get there. Does that make sense? Right. Flags, pick flag, reject flag, that is not stored in XMP memory.
And that's why I switched to using only stars.
Yeah, so stars are.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that's not is virtual copies. Virtual copies are not, that information is not written to XMP, but.
And there goes all my black and whites.
Right, but what you can do is snapshots. Snapshots are saved to XMP. And snapshots are available across all your virtual copies. So there's actually a nice plugin, I think it's called Snapshotter. There's a website called, I think it's Photographer's Toolbox. And there's a bunch of guys, all Lightroom users. I think they're all guys. When I say guys, I think they are. Apologies if there's one that's not. They're all Lightroom users, all photographers, and all nerdy developers. And they've created all these great plugins to do stuff that you wish Lightroom did, but doesn't. And there's one there, I think it's called Snapshotter. And it makes creating snapshots really easy. So you can I think you can select a bunch of photos even in grid view and just make snapshots, of all your virtual copies really quickly.
Okay, so one more time, what was the name of that site?
I believe, I'll look it up. It's.
I think we're gonna have to do a show on snapshots and ideas like that. Like Erica's asking, what are snapshots? And
I think it's Photographer's Toolbox.
Okay.
photographerstoolbox.com.
Maybe that's not it, but I'll find out what it is, and I'll make sure there's a link
in the show notes. Cool.
Yeah.
I think I wrote a chapter.
It's photographers-toolbox.com.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So I'll make sure that gets commented out there. Really great folks there. Great tools, and they're all donationware or very very inexpensive for what these things can do for you. So you can do that. So when Lightroom is writing to XMP, the reason that's not checked by default, now it's doing one more task, and that used to slow down performance for folks. So that's a trade-off if you think it's worth it. If you've got a really robust hardware, you may not notice that. If you've never checked it, I'm not saying to go do it. I'm just saying weigh this all out. But if you check that box, like if Levi just checked it for the first time, and he has literally 500,000 images in his catalog, he might notice a performance hit when it first goes through and updates every single 500,000 images.
Right.
But
it's kind of constantly running all the time. But.
Right. Once it's caught up, then hopefully that should not be as noticeable.
Right.
But just everything we're going to talk about in this hour is you always have to weigh out. Is this going to work? Don't just run out and start doing stuff, because then you get into problems. So weigh it all out, sleep on it, watch this episode again. Then ask us questions. We're pretty reachable folks. All right.
And Erica asked again, where's the backup catalog prompt? It's in the catalog preference, in the catalog settings.
It's only when you run a backup. All right. So if you go into that catalog settings, general, and set it to run every time you exit, which is what I suggest. Then when you exit Lightroom, you'll get prompted. Do you want to run the backup? And then that is the only place right there in that little dialogue that you can choose where to direct the backup to go.
Exactly. And then Marius Peter asks, wouldn't it be simpler if LR didn't have catalogs? Oh, I think you mean Bridge. If we didn't have catalogs in Lightroom, though, we wouldn't have all the great functions of Lightroom, right?
Yeah, then you get back to using Bridge, Camera Raw, and Camera Raw plugin.
Yeah, and which you can absolutely do. And some people love it.
It is simpler, yeah. Mm-hmm. And for people who have multiple users in a multiple user environment, it is a lot simpler. There's no database to synchronize. You're just opening a photo and you're doing your work, and it's writing back to the photo, and then I go and open it and I see all your work. Yeah, so that is simpler. But by having that catalog, we're able to do a lot more, a lot faster. Like we're able to create collections that only exist in the database. We're able to have virtual copies that only exist in the database. We're able to do all this flagging, and we're able to have all these smart collections and smart previews, and we're able to, so Lightroom is leveraging all of that database power to make our lives easier and faster in this environment. But there's a trade-off, right? Because it takes time to do it, back it up. You have to understand the relationship between the catalog and your photos. But it's not rocket science, because I can understand it. So once you've got it down, then you can work within that environment. But that first little kind of hurdle can hurt some folks.
So Rob, Levi, let me interject here. So one of the things I found through a lot of discussions at PPE and elsewhere is the question comes up of can I share Lightroom? And when you drill down, it really, in many cases, I'd say maybe this is 80% of the time, it's about can we share the original image files between users, and then different people will have different projects and they'll do different things, but they don't mind that because the Lightroom catalog and things is relatively small compared to all the raw image files. So in a situation like that, you could use network storage as a repository to put all of the original image files, and then each person can have their own catalog, and maybe they refer to different projects that all get added and archived on that one system. What do you think about that as sort of a workaround of trying to get the benefit of multiple people working off of a common image repository, but working around the limitations that Lightroom is a database and works on a single user's computer, not across a team of users?
It can be done, and people do it. So when you get into, so if you take, we started out with one computer, one user, one catalog, right? And that's kind of like the ideal, right? Now if we talk about multiple computers with one person, all right, it's a little bit simpler than where you're talking about. So we'll get to where you're talking about. But if we go to just say, okay, most of us, I think it's safe to say, have multiple computers these days. And a lot of people are saying, hey, I want to be able to access my photos on whichever computer I happen to be working on at the moment. And I want to be able to access all that work I've been doing in Lightroom as well, right? And so one solution is kind of what you're saying, Mark, is to store your photos on a network attached storage device like a Drobo 5N, which is what I have. And you can store your photos on the network drive, import them. Lightroom can import the photos and access them on that network drive, assuming you're in that network. And if all of my computers in my network, my local network, are the same operating system, either all Mac or all Windows, then that path to the photos is going to be the same on all of my computers. And so now I have the problem of, okay, I can access all the photos on every computer in my network, but I have this one catalog and it's on my one internal hard drive. I can't access that catalog when I'm on my other computer, all right? So how do we get around that problem? All right, and this is where it gets tricky, and you have to kind of weigh out the pros and cons. And so let's say that this rock was probably not a good example of a hard drive, but it's a rock. It's just the closest thing I have is a rock. I have a piggy bank too, but we'll say, how about a juggling ball? All right, because that's kind of what we're doing. We're juggling things. All right, and so say this is an external hard drive. I could store my catalog on this external hard drive, right? Just the catalog, the preview cache, all the related catalog files, not the photos, because the photos are stored on my network storage device, okay?
Which is the rock.
No, that has to be something else. How about this? It's a little bit bigger.
There you go. Yes, the piggy bank. The piggy bank is in there.
Has all my money in it, right?
That's where everything's stored.
Here's my network attached storage device, and here's my external hard drive. So I can plug this external hard drive into any computer on my network, open up that catalog, and because the path to my network storage device is going to be the same, the catalog will open and we'll be able to access the photos, and I'll be able to, because I only have the one catalog on that drive as I move it between computers, it's still accessing the same data, all right? And so that way I can kind of get around this idea of one person with multiple computers, okay? And so the problem is now I've got to carry this external hard drive around, and I've got to back this external hard drive up because it's got all my data in it, right? So
now here's another idea though, Rob. We could store the catalog on the network drive and just copy it to our computer every time we launch it.
All right, so
but like mine's 10 gigs, so that it takes.
So let's talk about that idea. So
and then save it back and then copy it back over.
The one caveat. So we'll say, well, I don't want to carry this external hard drive around my office or my home or my network, whatever my situation is. Can I just store that catalog on the network storage with my photos? Well, you can store it there, but you can't open it. You
right.
Can't open
Gotcha.
the catalog over a network connection. All right. And so what are the ways to work around that? All right. And so what some people
without going
will
too far down a rabbit hole.
No, well, this is a valid scenario. Okay. Where, people need to use their stuff, right? And so we're trying to figure out, we've got all this technology, all these smart people figuring stuff out. And so the most common scenario I've seen people use is Dropbox, all right? And so kind of like the way I use Dropbox for my backup of my catalog, they will store their actual working catalog inside the Dropbox folder so that that catalog and the preview cache, when it's getting synced up to the Dropbox, server and then back down to my other computer, or actually Dropbox will sync locally over your local network as well. I can work on my laptop, all right, closed out of Lightroom, give it time, okay, give it some time, go get coffee, so that all that information, that catalog file can get synced up to Dropbox and back to my other computer. Then I can sit down at the other computer, once that sync is complete, open up that catalog on the other computer in that Dropbox folder. Because my photos are stored on my 5N, the path is the same. And then I do my work there and I close out of that, and then that syncs back over to my Dropbox folder on all my computers. And so you could use any sync software that works that same way to do that same job. And so, for example, on my 5N, through the Drobo apps, there's an app called, it's now being called Resilio Sync, and it works as a peer-to-peer synchronization software. I can show it in a second here. And so using this software instead of Dropbox, I have a catalog and some photos actually stored inside of my 5N, and that gets synced from my laptop to my desktop. And it keeps that folder stays mirrored to each other after I'm done working, all right? And so because it's peer-to-peer synced on my local network, it's pretty fast, right? And I can have photos actually synced with it, so I keep some local photos stored on my local computer in that catalog, and those get synced over to my other drive as well. So if, say you didn't have a network-attached storage device, you could just store all your photos and your catalog in a synced folder, and that folder gets synced with all your photos and all your catalog. That would take a while, right? Obviously, that's more data, but that potentially could work too. So should I show you that? Would that be?
In just a minute. We've got a couple more questions, and then I've got a question here from Mark, right. And then we need some station identification from Rob.
I know, I'm going to blab on.
And then we've got some more questions. So Mark, the question from Levon is, if you're backing up your entire drive that has the catalog on it to a second drive, do you still back up your catalog via the LR via preferences? Like if I'm doing Time Machine on my laptop, do I still need to do the backup of the catalog file?
Okay, so I'm not quite sure I fully understand the question. So the question is about if you're backing up from, say, the internal drive on your Windows, your Mac machine to an external device.
Exactly. So that's copied completely over to another drive.
Okay. So do you still
need to back up my catalog file
within using the capability in Lightroom?
Right.
I hear this is my philosophy is. It's better, the closer you get to the tool, it knows all its idiosyncrasies in making a proper backup. The problem with something like Time Machine is databases they're open as you're working on it, so they're a dynamic object. So it may have some stuff that's still in RAM that has not been written to disk when that Time Machine backup goes. So as a result, Time Machine doesn't know any better. So it may copy something. It's an open database, and it may look like it's corrupt. So in that regard, I'd say, yeah, you probably do need the two. As an alternative, there's a tool, Carbon Copy Cloner by Bombic Software, and it has capability where it will put an app temporarily to sleep. So that open database, it will close the app, so everything gets quiescent and it's written out to disk. It will do the backup, and then they have another pairing script that will then go out and reopen that app. So that's a much more foolproof way of guaranteeing that you do get a high fidelity quality backup of the database. And the thing Rob was talking about using Dropbox or Resilio Sync, there again there's maybe a little bit of gotchas in that what's the time in the interaction of when does Lightroom write thing to disk? And I think the Resilio Sync will work. I'm not sure about Dropbox. I think Resilio Sync will work every time something is written to disk and it changes, it will trigger a new syncing operation. So ultimately, at some point, you're done for the day. If you just leave your Mac open, like I know many people do, and you go home, it will all get written to disk, and then Resilio Sync will sync it to the other computers. So that's a way to approach getting to this foolproof checkpoint.
Well, there's one more
database.
Yeah, there's also I think there's another reason we want to still back up the catalog, because if the catalog file is corrupt when we're doing the carbon copy or the Time Machine, then we're just copying a corrupt file. Is that right?
If the file is corrupt, backup will make a copy of it, so you'll be copying corrupted data somewhere else.
Right. Whereas if
no way around that.
If we open a backup Lightroom catalog file, then we've got a non-corrupt file to go from.
That's right. So if Lightroom properly saves a back, again, that's why I said earlier that I trust the the backup that the application does, and Lightroom's not the only one. I mean, we probably all use things like 1Password or other tools like that will make periodic backups. And the point there is you want the app to make its own certified copy of its database, which is then safe to copy and back up elsewhere. The whole problem, the danger zone is if it's an open database, some tools won't touch it, others will just copy what's on disk, and not knowing that it's only half the story and there's another half that's in RAM memory that hasn't been written to disk yet. So that's why they're in essence sort of making a backup of something that's corrupted because it's only half there.
Thanks.
Or partially there.
Yeah,
awesome.
And I would just add on to that not even protecting against corruption is important, but more likely what you're going to do is protect yourself against yourself. If you do something that causes a problem or removes some data or something like that, it's nice to have a backup that you can maybe go back to instead of just having the one backup, the one version that's now synced into Time Machine or whatever software you're using. It's nice to have those iterative copies to fall back on if you should ever need it. It's like life insurance. You hope
Right.
it's not
Right.
needed, but
right. And in the grand scheme of things, if we were talking a bit pre-show that what are my notes here? I think sort of like a 5 gig, a 3.5 gig Lightroom file gets compressed down to almost 600 megabytes. So with that compression, you're not paying a huge space penalty to keep a couple of those around.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it took us 3 to 5 minutes to have the backup operation run, and then even so say I only use Time Machine on my laptop and I was off in New York with you guys, and I don't know, this sounds crazy, but it actually happened to me. I left my laptop bag in the parking lot when I left the hotel. I left it sitting in just sitting in the parking lot. My entire life is in that bag. I left it sitting in the parking lot, and thankfully no one touched it. It sat there for 2 hours, and good people in the world got it back to me. But if that hadn't happened and I relied on Time Machine, it wouldn't have had any of the work I did while I was on my trip.
Right.
But by doing that backup and having to go to Dropbox or some other cloud storage, I at least would have had that, right? Even if I lost everything else. So the more frequently you back up, the better. And like Mark said, using software's own built-in tools to help you out, I think is a really, it's worth the investment of time and storage to do that. So
right. In the grand scheme of things, storage is relatively cheap.
Right.
Compared to your livelihood is in all the assets and all the photos that you create. So don't be penny wise and pound foolish, and don't think about it. Oh, I'm wasting money on an additional backup copy, because as we talk about in other shows here, that backup serves two purposes. One is to protect your data, and then the other one, we talk about bootable backup, that exists to save you time, some from having to reconstruct and rebuild your system if something crashes. So they're both necessary.
Absolutely.
So
I'm looking back at the questions.
Give us a quick station identification and contest.
So hey, this is November 2016. Getting down to the end of the year here. Photo Focus Lightroom Live. Now that we're Lightroom Live. Thank you to Drobo. It's been a wonderful sponsor this year, and appreciate their support. And also Perfectly Clear from Athentech. You guys have been wonderful to work with, and really appreciate your support. And so here's how you all who are watching can help us, is leave some questions for us, as you already have. Leave some nice comments, and then we draw from your names in our question chat module here to pick winners of our prizes. And so we have some prizes from Perfectly Clear to give away at the end of our show here, coming up in about 20-ish minutes. And I'm also giving away an ebook version of my book on taming your photo library with Lightroom. Seems to be a good topic for today.
Excellent.
And thank you to our guest Mark Fuccio from Drobo, who's been awesome in answering questions and also helping us think about this stuff in a really important, concrete way. So some questions have come in.
So next question for you. And this is a quick one from Ken, but it's a great question to ask. Are my export presets and my publishing services backed up in the backup folder when I back up my Lightroom catalog?
Yes and no. So published services, that's that little publish panel inside the library module. That's just part of the catalog, so that stuff is saved in the backup when you back up a catalog. But all your presets, whether they're export presets, develop presets, templates, print templates, all that stuff, that is not included in the backup. But remember that photographers hyphen toolbox website I mentioned earlier? There's a plugin, I think from the same guy who does Snapshotter, to be honest. I think it's on there. That before Lightroom backed up and compressed into zip files its backup, his plugin did that, but it also included the preferences and your templates. I'm pretty sure your presets in that. So that's a plugin to check out. I'm pretty sure it's on there. And Matt Dawson, I think, is the developer on that one.
Excellent.
So yeah, I'm just looking through.
Is there a limit on how many photos you can store in a catalog?
No.
I don't think so.
No,
mine's got
no
500,000. And
Levi's testing that limit.
So how much space do you have, right?
Exactly. Space, and it is obviously there's a hardware component to performance. That the more data you have in there, the better your hardware is, the easier it's going to be to work with that much data. But there's not like a counter that's going to come up and say, hey, you can only take 5 more images and you're done.
It used to be that it slowed down significantly with a lot more pictures in it, but it doesn't have that problem anymore. So.
Right. So Levi, are you really serious that you're coming up on 500,000 photos?
Yeah. Let's see. It's sitting right now at. Come on, Cal. Here, I'll share my screen with you.
Here's that performance.
It's counting. Yeah.
Okay.
473,046 pictures.
Okay, yeah, because your fellow photographer and author at Photo Focus, Kevin Ames, I know he has almost 800,000 photos.
That's it? He's got like 30 years on me. What's?
Well, he still has a lot of
year.
film and slides that still have yet to be imported.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's good. If he's still got that stuff that's not in yet, okay, good. I do also have. I mean, my first year, I shot nearly 100,000 photographs, and about 3 of them are worth keeping. So I need to clean up.
All right. So any other questions there?
Yeah, we do. If I'm shooting tethered to a laptop with Lightroom with an external drive, and I want to move those photos from the shoot to my desktop and main catalog, should I plug in the hard drive to the desktop and import?
Okay, so here, this would be a good one for you, Levi, because we were talking
Yeah.
about this before the show. So the idea is, I have a primary working
I'll prep a
catalog.
screen share here.
So while Levi's getting set up, I'll just talk through this scenario idea. So say I'm a desktop-based photographer. That's where my master catalog is, and access to my main photo library is on my desktop catalog. But I go off on a shoot, client or whatever I'm doing, and so I'm shooting tethered. So I bring my laptop, and on my laptop I have a catalog just for that day, just for that shoot, that project, whatever. And so now I'm shooting tethered with Lightroom on this laptop, on this temporary, call it a temporary catalog. And that catalog, I stored it on my external hard drive. And so all my photos are on the external hard drive, and the catalog is also on the external hard drive. And now I'm shooting tethered, and I'm shooting, and all the photos are going in here, and the data's in here. Then I'm done with my shoot, and I go home, and I want to bring all of the photos and the data, the work, because I was working on the plane or whatever in Lightroom, and I keyworded, I did a bunch of stuff. And I want to get all that work in Lightroom and all the photos from this external hard drive into my main Lightroom catalog on my desktop computer. And so you can use a function to export from your catalog. You can actually export a smaller catalog out of your main catalog. You can include photos or not. Probably would if you're going to export out of a catalog. You would include some photos. And then you can do that work on that laptop external hard drive while you're out in the world. When you come back, there's a function called import from catalog, and you can bring in not only the photos, but all the work that you did into your main catalog. And so Levi is going to kind of do a little demo of that.
Yeah, let me just show you where those things are really quickly. And so let's see here. Collections, like I've got a collection in this other catalog on my other computer, and I can just right-click on there and choose export this collection as a catalog. Bada bing, that's it. And then I can, when I get back to my other computer, I come up here to File, and I do import photos from another catalog. And then I just navigate to that catalog we just created, and it imports everything. It even imports collections and stuff. And I recently did this for a friend who, we use this system repeatedly to get pictures. She had like 6 different little hard drives, and we transferred everything into a 5N, into a Drobo 5N, and transferred to a new workstation too. So we discontinued using one computer, started up fresh on a new computer, and got all of her catalogs into one catalog. She had like 4 or 5 catalogs, and we compiled all these into one and consolidated all of her photographs into the 5N, and using these tools for import from another catalog was just so simple. It was great.
Yeah. So Levi, while you have that open,
yes.
So if I was Jeff who asked that question, and I was getting ready to go off on a shoot, and I wanted to bring some photos with me, so maybe I would do what Levi did and right-click on a collection of photos and choose export this collection as a catalog, and I would export that collection as a catalog to an attached external hard drive. All right, and now that collection now becomes its own little catalog on my external hard drive that I pointed it to.
Yeah, and I tell it where to go.
Yeah, and I also chose to include the photos as well. So that in Lightroom lingo, the negative files, but it's just copies of the source photos. And so now on the external hard drive, I have all the data about those photos, collection membership, develop settings, keyword, everything that's in Lightroom is now in this little exported catalog, along with copies of the photos. So if I want to actually maybe send them to Photoshop to do some additional editing, or maybe I'm going to do a print along the way, I don't know, who knows, whatever I need the source files for, that's all on the external hard drive. I get to my location, I plug that drive into my laptop, I open up, do a tethered shoot. All the photos from that tethered shoot are now stored on this external hard drive along with everything I brought in before. Now I'm doing some more work on the bus back home or the plane or whatever. I get back home, I connect that external hard drive to my desktop, and I do what Levi just showed, that file import from another catalog, and I suck all that data from that external hard drive catalog into my main catalog. And in that process, there's a little dialog that you can copy new photos to my chosen location. And I can also, it will say, hey, do you want to, I noticed that 75 of these photos changed from before. It's going to recognize those photos and that the data changed. I can also bring in that changed information as well. And now my master catalog is all up to date with all the changes I made, has all the new photos, and I can just clear off that external hard drive that served its purpose as a temporary kind of like transfer station to bring it all back home. So
Yeah,
okay. So I have a question. I have a question. That sounds like a really cool workflow. I don't want to be a buzzkill here, but
no, that's what
I would ask you. So you keep. I don't have that little thing here, but I have. Well, I don't know. I have maybe a Swiss Army knife or something. So this little photo that has everything on it. If you were to actually do that, would you just rely on one, or would you make a copy of that to another hard drive or onto your notebook, just to protect in case, maybe that drive fails, or the stewardess dumps coffee on it, or you leave it in the seat back when you get off the airplane?
Well, you're creating new files. You're creating new copies of your original files when you export as a catalog.
Yeah.
So
it's essentially it's just another catalog. So everything we talked about in terms of backing up your catalog, knowing where it is, all of those good practice, rules of working would still apply.
Okay.
For all the reasons you just said.
Right.
And so I think, Levi, you use a Drobo Mini when you're traveling, right?
Yeah, I do. I got this guy right here, and it's a.
We're seeing your screen though.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop screen sharing. Check, and then turn back on my video
Turn
profile.
on lights.
There we go.
Right.
So I use this guy, and it's got bays for 4 hard drives. I only have 2 hard drives in it right now, and this is a very good way to travel because when I come home, I can pop out a drive, and I can put this in my carry-on bag, and then I can pop out this drive and stick it in my suitcase and check it on the plane, or preferably give it to my wife and put it in her carry-on bag, because the chances of us both leaving our carry-on bags, while Rob or I may leave our bags sitting on the sidewalk outside the hotel, my wife is a lot less likely to do that. And so then I've got all my data. All my data is on both of those drives at the same time. So each of them has everything on it, essentially. And that's a very safe way to do an off-campus workflow. And
right.
So you just need to make sure you're protected, so it gets back from the offsite location back to your studio safely. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, there you want to make sure you're protected against a single point of failure, like a single hard drive or a single computer.
I've still got my very originals on my big Drobo, because when I exported the catalog to here, I created a copy of all the pictures. So I'm not taking the only copy of the pictures right here. I've got a copy of the pictures. And then any changes I make to these files in Lightroom will be synced back to my home Drobo, to my 5D or 5N when I get home.
Can't have too many backups, can you?
So, no, definitely not. So that was awesome, Levi. Thank you. So hopefully that answered your question, Jeff. You know how to reach me if it didn't, but hopefully that did. And the important part there is by exporting that catalog, you're able to bring in all that data. So like if you just had the photos on the external hard drive on your tethered shoot, and then you plugged in that external hard drive with just the photos to your desktop, you don't want to have to just re-import over from scratch, because you'd lose any of the work you did in the interim. But by using that catalog import functionality, you're importing the catalog, the data, not just the photos. Hopefully that makes it clear. All right. Go.
Andrew asks, would you separate your personal pictures from professional pictures and back them up separately, or just sort them in Lightroom?
I don't.
I don't either, because when I want to look at my pictures, I want to see all my pictures. And if I have to stop and switch catalogs, or So, you know, some of my family pictures end up being some of my favorite artwork. And if I want to share those in a portfolio, then, you know, I can just put them in my Lightroom mobile and have them ready to share anytime, or create a portfolio online from. But if I have multiple catalogs spread out, then I can't sync those to Lightroom mobile, and I can't sync them to Lightroom on the web. And that's a huge handicap. So I strongly recommend just keeping them all together and using separate collections. I have a family collection. I might have a different section on my hard drive, but no, keep them all in the same catalog.
Yeah, I mean, there are obviously people who have multiple catalogs, and as long as you have a really good reason for doing it, and you understand the pros and cons and all the things Levi just said, and that's what you decide to do, then yeah, I mean, you could do that, but don't do it unless it really gives you a benefit that you're not getting otherwise. All right, and so if that, you know, we all have to do that calculus for ourselves, but for most people, it probably makes the most sense having one catalog. Just makes your life a lot simpler. One thing to back up, one thing to update when the new version of Lightroom comes out. You know, just over and over again. It's a real simpler solution.
I think this question is related to importing the catalog back into your main, like importing a branch catalog into your main catalog again. Does it overwrite the original photos when we re-import back?
So if you did what, you know, you export out a catalog with some photos, you did some work on those photos, and then you go to import that all back into your master catalog, Lightroom will say, hey, there's some old photos in here with some new work. Do you want to bring in those changes? And if the answer is yes, you actually have the option to save those changes as a virtual copy. And so you'll see both the original edits you had before you exported out the catalog and all the new work you did as a virtual copy. You don't have to do the virtual copy option. You could overwrite and say, no, just bring in the change. I made the changes. I want to make the changes. Make the changes, right? So you don't have to, you have the option, right? You choose which way you want to go. If you ever go, I don't remember which is the right one, you can go the safe route and do the virtual copy, and then you'll just have to sort out that mess later on. But yeah, you have the choice.
Awesome. Thank you. Erica says, this is so valuable. Wow. Thank you. Thanks, Erica. Thanks for tuning in. Can't ever have enough storage and backups from Tom Bundy Hunter. And what about editing in LR, in the LR app on your iPad? Do you have any special setup tips for doing that? The great thing about that, about Lightroom Mobile and using a single catalog is that it all comes back together.
Yeah. So Lightroom Mobile, obviously you have to be a Creative Cloud subscriber, but for the photography plan of $9.99 a month, at least here in the States, it's pretty hard to beat. Get full version of Lightroom, all updates, full version of Photoshop, and all new updates as they come out. Plus, you have the ability to sync your catalog with Lightroom Mobile, and there's Adobe Portfolio, and they keep adding new features and functions to it. So it's really hard to say not to just get the cloud version, I'm just saying. But so Lightroom Mobile only syncs one catalog at a time. So that's one setup to think, to keep in mind. You can switch. Right. You have to delete stuff that's up there and then resync it. But so you can switch between it, but you can only have one active one at a time. And there's a lot of cool features. But otherwise, yeah, you create collections. So it's regular collections that you choose to sync. So that's the other thing, to get in the habit of using collections. And once those sync to the cloud, now they're available in some of the other Adobe products like Adobe Portfolio, Adobe Spark. You can, while you're editing, say on your iPad, you can send a photo to Photoshop Mix or Fix and have that kind of sync back through the Creative Cloud, back end. It's pretty cool.
You can even access them over any internet connection and continue making edits via the internet. And that's very interesting. I was doing it last night and I like it.
Yeah, it's cool. I built my whole website, robsylvan.com, just from collections that were already synced through Lightroom Mobile that I had already done, and using Adobe Portfolio, made a whole portfolio website on a bus ride to New York. Actually, I went down to wasn't PPE. It was I was doing a B&H event earlier in the year. So so that's pretty cool. But nothing else I can think of. So I think we're coming to the end of our hour. So how about, can I show one more thing, Levi, while you're picking names? All right, so I really wanted to show this because I think this is very cool. functionality here. So on my 5N, through the, I guess I got to share my screen first before I do this. So let me share this and switch on over here. So can you see my screen now?
Yes.
So this is my Drobo dashboard. So I've got these two Drobo devices, and one of them is a 5N. And on the 5N, you can install different apps. And so one of the apps I installed is this thing called Resilio Sync. And once that's installed, this is the web interface for it. And so I have a single folder that I called Sylvan Sync. And inside that folder, which is this folder right here, I have a catalog that I called Shared Catalog. And I actually have a backup that I stuck in there as well. And I have some photos in there. And so if I open up this catalog, and so you can open up any Lightroom catalog just by double-clicking on the catalog file. That launches Lightroom. All right, and then once Lightroom comes up, so here in this catalog, I have some photos, all right, and some of them are local and some are stored on my network drive. And so this catalog, if I do some work in here, so if I just say select all these photos, and I'm gonna hit the V key just to make them all black and white, and I'll just go in here and I'll crop them all square, all right? And so all that work I just did in the catalog file. And once I close that catalog file out, I come back over here, we can see that it's receiving those changes. And this is all happening through a local peer-to-peer setup. And this is the desktop version of this app as well. You don't have to use the interface on the web. So it's sending that information out, and it's using my 5N as the point that syncs between my laptop and my desktop.
That's cool.
And so here in the history, I can see that it's updating the files. It removed the lock file, removed the journal file. And so essentially, it's keeping this folder completely in sync with this same folder on my desktop computer, right? And so once that sync process was complete, right, and it will tell me, hey, it's finished syncing with my 5N, finished syncing with my desktop computer. I can go over to my desktop computer, open that same catalog, and pick up working where I left off. And you can either store photos in that synced folder like I did, just kind of testing it out, or if your photos are stored on a network device, as long as they're, the path is the same. So my desktop machine is actually a Windows machine, and so the path, the way Windows and Mac treat the network path is different. So I have to do a thing where I update the, reconnect the catalog to the folder if I switch it on one or the other. But as long as I don't switch it, then it works really well. I also stored some smart previews in that catalog, so even if my photos are offline for whatever reason, I can still use the smart previews to do some work. So if you're looking for a way to kind of leverage what you already have, because I'm using this, I don't have to buy additional Dropbox. I love Dropbox, but I have just the free account, right? I can get, a terabyte of space for, I don't know, what is it, $10 a month? I don't know, whatever it is. But by using this built in with my 5N, I'm only limited to how much storage space I have either locally, because I'm syncing a folder, so I need to take into account my local storage as well as the amount of storage on my 5N. But that's something that I can control with my hard drive space, and as long as that's same amount of space on my desktop, I can keep those things in sync, all locally in my own local network here. All peer-to-peer, and it's pretty cool. I was pretty impressed with that little functionality in there. So
that's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, I would add for that Resilio Sync. He showed having the app on the 5N. You also need, in this case, I think an app that's available for OS 10 as well as for Windows.
Yes.
And it needs to be installed there. It's as easy to set up as any other software package, and you share a folder and you get a key for the folder, and you enter that key in the other machines you want to share with, and boom, it goes off in the background. And depending on how much data you have, it takes a little bit of time, or even more time, and then it keeps everything in sync. So
that's cool.
I found it pretty easy to set up. I tried a bunch of different things, and I found that one to be pretty straightforward to set up. But you're right, you do need the desktop client on both, and that was that last one I showed there is the desktop client for Mac, and then I have a similar one on my Windows machine, and that just handles that sync happening on the local side of the machines.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
and just other plugs for that. You know, they have free versions, and they have paid versions that add more capability in terms of number of folders and things that you have. But also there are versions for iPhone or iPad or Android, so you can use it. Maybe just another plug for Drobo if you want to load up movies for next time you have to get on an airplane or a train ride or something. It's a great way to sync it onto your portable device.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That is a great idea because that's a great idea because I can share videos on Instagram now, but getting a video that I finished from my laptop to my phone is not always a super simple process.
Right.
And so that sounds like a pretty good way of transferring some handy data.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to testing out some more and seeing what more I can do with it. But for just this basic, I wanted to come up with what's the simplest workflow I could do using what I had.
Yes.
And getting the most out of it. I was pretty impressed by what I could do. Pretty much out of the box.
Awesome. One more question: with a new version of Photoshop CC and Bridge out, do you think a new version of Lightroom will be out soon? Well, Rob and I had drinks with the Lightroom manager from Adobe the other day, and you know what he told us?
What
Nothing.
Was that? I drank
Absolutely
nothing.
Yeah. But we did. We actually got a new version of Lightroom ahead of Photoshop and Bridge. So I wouldn't be expecting too much very soon. But we have no information about this, and neither do any of our relatives.
Yeah, the thing is that if you know, you can't say, and if you don't know, you don't know. So
right.
That's kind of where we're at.
Right.
Right.
Well, we can always hope, right? We always want something new, better, and faster, and more amazing than what we have already, because we never can have too much good stuff.
But as soon as it does come out, we will tell you all about it here on the Lightroom Live Hangout. And we are so glad that you've all joined us today.
Yeah, and on Photo Focus too. And so I'll have an article coming up on that Resilio sync using Lightroom coming out soon. So
awesome. I'm looking forward to
that. So do we have some winners?
We do. We've got some winners, and we'd like to thank Mark for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
Of all, and thank you for Drobo's support of this hangout. We've taught thousands of people how to use their Lightroom better because of your support. So we appreciate that.
Yeah. And I love having Mark on because Mark, you not only did you just have a tremendous amount of knowledge about hard drives and storage and data and backup, but you always make us really kind of break things down so that we're very clear. And this thing, it can get really kind of blow your mind. But I really appreciate you keeping our feet on the ground.
Me too.
Yes, because Drobo is just a supporting actor. You guys and software like Adobe's Lightroom, that provides all the magic. But it really needs to be chunked down into different pieces because there's so many ways to do things with these complex tools that if you don't really focus on it, people get tremendously confused, and that's not good for anybody.
Yeah, no, definitely not. All right, so who's our winners, Levi?
I've got two winners for who have won a complimentary full license of Perfectly Clear Complete, which makes your pictures look better faster than you can do it on your own. And those winners are Tom Bunny Hunter and I love saying Tom Bunny Hunter's name every time, and Erica Mitchell. So if you guys are still here, please weigh in with one more comment and tell us you're here. And then you'll just send me an email at levi@photofocus.com, and I will send you download instructions and a license code for Perfectly Clear Complete, and you're gonna love it. It's really powerful.
Yeah.
And then one more winner for Rob's Lightroom book, his new book, an ebook version, is Andrew Tittensource. So Andrew, if you're still in there, weigh in for us and
send me an email, rob@photofocus.com if you are the winner. So Erica and Tom are here.
Yay. All right.
And so who was the last person?
Andrew.
Andrew, are you still here? So Andrew?
Yes. And Erica, by the way, my email address is levi@photofocus.com. And Levon, let's not jump the gun here. Look, Andrew weighed in. So, although I know a guy, Levon, who might be able to hook you up.
If Levon comes to Photoshop World in April, I'll see what I can do by getting her a book. a signed book. All right, so just show
and
up.
she only has to wait 6 months for it. You're
That's
so
right.
wonderful. You're such a
Yeah. So hey, speaking of Photoshop World, I am teaching for the first time. I've been working at Photoshop World for
congratulations.
12 years, but finally I get to be on the instructor side of it. So I'm teaching a Lightroom class.
Congratulations. That's big.
Yeah, thanks. So come to Photoshop World, and I'll answer your questions in person. Levon, I will give you a book if you come, because she's on the fence on that. So she doesn't want to go to Florida. She's got to answer.
She doesn't want to go to Florida. She comes all around the country to these things with us, but she won't come to Florida. Come on,
yeah. So all right. So Andrew is here. Great, Andrew. I'll send me an email at rob@photofocus.com, and I will send you off a code to download this book from Peachbit/Adobe Press. Guys.
Well, Mark Fuccio, where can we catch up with you and learn more great backup and protection tips for ourselves?
So I'll give you a couple places if you want to contact me and just see some of my sharings of interesting articles and things. It's at Mark Fuccio, MarkFuccio, all one word, on Twitter. Professional activities, you can reach me at LinkedIn. For discussion about Drobo topics, reach out to @Drobo, DROBO, via Twitter or on the Facebook group, and that's a nice way to stay in touch with the news and other developments.
Excellent. Awesome. Thank you so much. And Rob, where can we catch up with you before Photoshop World?
So go to photofocus.com. There's tons of articles. Some of them are even mine, and definitely more recent stuff I put up there. Eventually it goes to my Lightroomers website, but trying to put stuff to Photofocus first. And Lightroomers on Twitter, and I'm around. Just Google,
Yeah, Rob's around.
No privacy for anybody.
And I just checked. Registration is open for Photoshop World, and you'll get a cheaper price by registering now. Incidentally, early registration for WPPI ends tomorrow. So if you're looking at that, the lower price ends tomorrow on that one.
Are you going?
And yeah, I'll be there. I'll be at Imaging as well, at Imaging USA, and I'll be at the Oregon branch of the Professional Photographers of America this weekend, OPPA. I'll be speaking there, and I'd love to see you if you're anywhere nearby. Come on up. It's going to be a pretty powerful exposition, I think. So
cool. Mark, are you doing any trade shows?
Yes. So Drobo will be at Imaging next. When is it? January, right? Yeah, into January, and. Not quite sure the rest of the year, but certainly we'll be at NAB and PPE again next October, and maybe some other events in between.
Great. Excellent. It's always great to just talk in person about this stuff. So definitely work. Right. Go every show you go. I don't care which one. Just go out there.
Yes, learn things in person.
Yeah,
it is good.
Yeah.
And Levon brings up a good point. She can watch this again later because this is recorded live on YouTube. And in fact, as soon as I hit the stop broadcast button, this will be available to rewatch. So do us a favor and share it with your friends. We appreciate your support.
Yes, indeed.
On this show. So.
All right. Well, guys, it's been a great show. Thank you, everyone, for all your questions. Thank you, Mark, for spending your hour with us. Levi, always great to see you. So we'll be back first Monday of December, and we're working on a guest. Still waiting to get confirmation. But it should be a good one.
It's going to be a good one. Yeah, we've got a couple of people who are vying to be on. I mean, there's a fist fight next week to decide who's going to be on. And yeah,
okay,
we'll see you guys later.
Everyone, be kind tomorrow. Election day. Be kind.
That's right.
Let's go vote. Right. Thank you, Levi. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you very much.
All right. Take care, everybody.
See you all.
Okay. Bye-bye.